Okay, today we will do the next project in the list, which will be a ring stand. Now, in Canvas, you will find this document in the same week that you're finding this video. And it shows all of the written instructions for constructing the ring stand. Now, ring stands have been around for thousands of years. Women have kept them next to the sink, next to their nightstand, where they can park their rings while they wash dishes or take them off at night before they go to bed. And they'll be there in the morning when it's time to put them back on again. So ring stands have a history. Most of them were made out of wood, some out of porcelain, but today we'll of course turn it out of wood. I've got a piece of carob that we're going to use today. You'll see it's not completely square, which is perfectly all right because all of this will be turned off. If not, when we turn it round, when we actually turn the smaller portion of the ring stand, the part that extends up. So we will mount this in the lathe in a chuck, and we'll get started in just a moment. Okay, we're now ready to actually start. We'll take the blank. It's 2.5 inches square and it's 5 inches long according to the plans. And we'll just drop that into the chuck and tighten it up. And we'll tighten it up on both sides so we get an even amount of pressure all the way around. Now, we're mounted up. The next step is going to be to turn it round. And as always, we'll spin the piece before we start to make sure that it's clear of everything. We'll use a roughing gouge. We'll set our speed to about 1200. And we'll begin to start. Now we have it pretty much round except for a flat spot here and there, so we'll turn it just a little bit more. Now, that gives us, it's completely round and we're ready now to do the shaping. Now, we rough it out with the roughing gouge, but it is rough. So it would be good if we could clean this up a little bit before we get down to our finished diameter. Now, the finished diameter that we're looking for is a little bit over 2 inches. Now currently we're at 2 inches and 23/64, so we're still well above 2 inches. So we're going to switch to our bowl gouge, and then we will finish turning this down with the bowl gouge. We can now move our tool rest up a little bit Again, we'll make sure that it's going to clear. Now, as you notice, when I'm turning that, I'm riding the bevel. That my handle is down quite a bit, but I'm back on the bevel, and that's going to give me a nice consistent cut, and it smooths it up quite a bit. Now, we're still well above 2 inches, so we can actually do our next step. What we want to do with this next step is to mark off a line that's going to establish the small end of the ring stand. Now, what we need to do is measure our line at 1 1/8 inches. Transfer it all the way around. Now we'll use our parting tool, and we're going to take that down to 5/8 of an inch. Now, anytime you are approaching a line with a parting tool, you need to decide whether you're going to be to the right of the line, to the left of the line, or centered on it. Now, in your written instructions, it says to do it centered. So we'll take this down to 5/8 of an inch. Now, because of the way the parting tool is made, the sides of the tool rub against the wood as you go in, and that generates a little heat. So sometimes it's wise to come back out and take another small cut. Now the tool sides are not touching the wood as you're making the cut, and that will reduce the heat that's produced, and it will prolong the life of your tool. Now that's just a little under 3/4, so we need a little bit more to get down to our 5/8. And that's right at 5/8, so we're good on that depth. Now there's several ways that we can remove all of this material. We could do it with the parting tool, or we can do it with the bowl gouge. So we'll just continue this with the bowl gouge. So, we now have the smaller diameter that we need at the 5/8. And now we can go ahead and shape the end of this. The shape just needs to be rounded over. We're going to need to get a little bit closer with that tool rest. And we'll use the bowl gouge to go ahead and roll around it. Now you notice how much I'm swinging the handle on this tool. What I'm trying to do is stay on the bevel as I go around. Now the largest diameter through here needs to be 9/16 according to the plans. So we'll need to make sure that we're down at the largest part needs to be the 9/16. And we're almost there, but not quite. The important thing about this size, the 9/16 right here, is this is the largest diameter, and if the inside diameter of the ring that whoever winds up with this is going to park on here, it needs to fit all the way over this 9/16. The reason I picked 9/16 is it's slightly smaller than the average ring size. So it should be, there should be enough clearance so that the ring is going to fit on here. Now once we're past that point, it's going to get a little smaller. It actually is going to go down to about 7/16. But we're going to clean all of that up in just a moment. We're going to mark our next line on here, which is going to be at 7/8. Now the 7/8 line is the largest diameter on the shoulder that we'll be turning. So what we're going to do is turn this off into a shoulder, but back from this edge a little bit. And then it's going to sweep up and fare into this portion. And you just take a look at your plans and they would show you the actual shape that we're looking for. Now I've actually missed a step in here, so I'm going to go back and correct that. It's not too late to do that, but I need to take my parting tool and turn this section right here down. Now according to the plans, the dimension for that is going to be 1 inch and 7/16. So we will take our parting tool and we will cut this down to 1 inch and 7/16. And that's at 1 3/4. So we got a little bit more to go. That's a little bit better than 1 9/16. So that's right at 1 1/2. So we've got just a little bit more to go. Now that's going to be pretty close to what we want. Then all of this material could be removed. And now we'll continue now with the bowl gouge and turn this shoulder. So now we have the shoulder and a nice curve going up to meet the section up in the front. And now we'll double check that we have about the 7/16 that we're looking for here. And that's just a little bit under. I missed that by 6/1000 of an inch. So that's about the shape I'm looking for right there. Now, the next step is going to be to measure back to the end of our ring stand, and then take that down to exactly 2 inches and then shape that. So in the next segment we will do that and actually finish up the ring stand. Okay, now the next mark that we need to make is at 13/16. So we'll put our mark there. Now this actually locates the end of our ring stand. So when we part that down, we want to, the base is going to be at 2 inches. So we need to part this down well below 2 inches so we clearly delineate the end of our ring stand. So we'll go to the left of the line. Now again, we're going to take off a little more so we can bind up and heat up our parting tool. And you just need to get that in deep enough to where you know it's deeper than the final diameter. And now we're going to also use the parting tool, and we're going to take the rear of this down to our 2 inches. So we'll take a little bit more off here. And we're still a little bit over, so we'll take down a little bit more. now we've got a 32nd of an inch to go. And that should put us very close. So we now have established our finished diameter at the base. Now all we have to do is remove this material right here in such a way that it's going to fare in to our existing line up here. So we'll do that with the bowl gouge. So, we now have our rough shape for our ring stand. What we need to do now is just sand it a little bit, and then we're going to do something new that you haven't seen before, and that's we're going to put some wire burning in it just for decoration. So let me get it sanded a little bit. I'm not sure you need to watch the sanding unless you really like to. I'll get it completely sanded, and then we'll go on with the best way to lay out and wire burn a mark in a piece. So I'll be right back. Okay, we're back, and I've sanded completely, and I've actually laid out the lines for the wire burning. We'll have 3 on the tip and 2 back on the base. Now, when you're on a curve like you are on the front, it's very difficult to get the wire to start burning where you want it to. So what you need is a small groove that you would be able to fit the wire in, and then that would hold it in place while you're burning it in exactly the place that you want it. Now to do that, we're going to use the skew. Now we're going to use the long point down, and we're going to very carefully put that tip right on our line and just mark it just enough to get an indentation in the wood that the wire can find. So let's cut the grooves for all of these. Now, we get our tool rest completely out of the way. Now, the wire has 2 handles on it, and it's a fairly thin piece of music wire. What we want to do is find a place where we can brace it, where we can find the notch, and we bring up the wire until it starts to burn. And you want to make sure that you burn deep enough to where it's not going to sand out or now, there's our burn marks. We can take a piece of sandpaper and just kind of clean it up because it'll be a little rough. And now we have our lines. Now, the downside of burning more than 2 lines is that if you burn 3, and you didn't measure well, or didn't burn well, they might not be equally spaced, the 2 on the outside from the center. So when you do 3, it's actually a great deal more difficult than doing 2. When you have 2, if you're off a little bit, nobody knows. Now, as you can see here, I'm off a little bit. These are a little bit closer together than these are. But what can I say? I'm old. So this is basically what we have to do on the lathe. Now the next step is to part it completely off, and I'm going to change the camera position so you can see that a little bit better. Now, to completely part this off the lathe, we're going to use the parting tool, and we're going to go right in through here, and we'll continue to run this all the way back until we can get it fairly small. Then there's a couple of ways that you can finish it. You can actually part it off completely on the lathe, or you can take it to a bandsaw and cut it off. Now I'm going to show you how to actually cut it off completely and safely on the lathe. But we'll get it down to a small diameter first, and it'll look something like this. Now, once we get a fairly small diameter, we can't just completely cut it off and let it go. If we do, it'll bounce around and get itself scarred up. So we need to hold it with one hand while we cut it off with the other. Now I'm going to hold the parting tool in one hand. I'm still going to use my index finger against the tool rest to get my depth of cut. But I'll line up very closely, and then I'll hold it with my other hand. And now we've cut it completely off. And if we were careful, we got it fairly flat. But there's a way that we can guarantee that this is going to sit flat on whatever surface it's going to be put on. So let me set the camera up for that, and I'll show you how to get the bottom of your pieces clean. Okay, this is what I call a Norwegian steam-powered sander. All it takes to make it work is a convenient Norwegian to do all the work for you. It's nothing but a piece of MDF with some sandpaper glued down. This is going to take a little bit of work, so I'm going to start with a piece of 120. You just hold down the sandpaper, and you hold it flat and continue to sand until it begins to work down the bottom. Now, a convenient way to know that you've actually finished, that you're all the way through, is to take a pencil and just put some marks. Now, as you sand, the pencil marks will be removed. When all of the pencil marks all the way around are removed, you're done. And that's all of the pencil marks are gone. So now we just put it on the 220 paper to get it a little bit smoother. And then it should sit down flat without rocking. So that's how you finish off the bottom of not just this piece, but there are lots of places where you would use this method to finish off the bottom of your piece.